Hello, I'm Sacco, and welcome back to another Mechabellum Replay review. Starting off with the opening packs, we have access to the Farseer Specialist, which honestly seemed like the clear choice there. Everything else didn't look that interesting. Unit combinations and specialists didn't look great. And at the end of the day, I always prioritize the starting specialist over the unit combination. Now, you can't really go wrong with balls in this meta because, of course, they did remove the oil from the card drops, so now you can only have access to oil from the tower. And also, steel balls just have a lot of hard winning matchups, like the Stormcallers, the Spiders, and the Saber-Tooths. I would say your favorite if you ace and push on round 1. Now, of course, into Sledgehammers, it's not that ideal since the Sledgehammers do a really good job at slowing down the push, especially if you position them vertically, right? Now we're up against Agrypnocoma, who is currently rated at 2.3k MMR, and he is training specialist. Looks like he opts to go for the level 2 marksman, which is an interesting choice because if the steel balls end up killing the marksman, it's going to feed a lot of XP here. Now I set up a ASIM push and I buy 2 Arclights because of course it's very likely that he's going to buy 2 crawlers. Some people like to also buy 2 Arclights as well, but I'm not going to take that risk and just go for the safe Arclight play. Now, Arclights are positioned a little bit too far forward. I usually still like to greed and position as close to the line as possible, but with the Arclights positioned 10 meters from the fake line, so 30 meters from the real line like round 2, there's risk that I will get stuck on the Sledgehammers, and that's exactly what happens here. Now, the more conservative positioning on my end should have been Arclights 30 meters from the fake line, 50 meters from the real line, and that way it would mitigate any of this occurrence here, right? Of course, I can just place Phoenixes behind the Arclights to free up the Arcs faster and kill the Sledges, but not that big of a deal here. And honestly, I still prioritize just balls as close to the line as possible here. Now, even with his center pull, the way, since he started off with crawlers and not fangs, it's very hard to make sure the balls all stay in the middle, so somehow it just one breaks off the tower, gets some experience off the tower, and of course kills the level 2 marksman, which enables my balls to level. And now this is insane tempo for the steel balls because, well, level 2 steel balls round 2 is definitely very hard to deal with, and you might need a real answer to the steel balls here. Now the unit drops already coming round 2, and honestly it's a very clear Phoenix pick here. I think for both sides, like Mustangs aren't that interesting on the board in the current state, Fangs don't really do anything for me, and Stormcallers don't do much for a push on both sides, so it's a very clear Phoenix pick. And I usually go Phoenix round 2 anyways in most aggro scenarios, so can't really go wrong here. Now with the center pull, definitely want to, the weakness of the center pull is that you leave the tower exposed, so of course you expect him to position more stuff near the tower, but I'm definitely going to unlock the mole beacon round 2 so I can start threatening the tower and trying to scale with the steel balls. Now that requires, I have left 200 supplies. Now I know I definitely want to make sure this balls get in, so in case he places any chaff on the left side, I'm going to add an additional Arclight. And I know this, I already thought about this crawler from this turn, and I just greeted for it. The thinking was, if I place this crawler behind tower, it's not going to do anything, and I definitely want to fortify the tower next, and this crawler at least assists the push. Now, of course, I do get punished for it partially by not defending the tower, but I maybe greeted too much here. But honestly, it ends up not being that big a deal since I mobile beacon the steel balls, and I still trade debuffs anyways. Looking back, I should have just placed the crawler behind the tower and then this round go a lot better here. But, sometimes you take some risks, and that's part of playing aggro here, right? You want to pressure the tower as much as possible, but also you have to still defend your weak side tower. Alright, Redeployment honestly is one of those cards when you're playing aggro, and even on defense, that you can't really skip. You can do a lot of, but you see both sides, we pick it up. You can do a lot of sneaky plays with of course mole beaconing your high level balls to the other side, and it forces them to overcommit some resources. Well, then you can redeploy the ball back, and now they have dead supply on one side, or you can flank, you can commit harder to deep flanks and then pull back. like without the cooldown time with the flanks. You can just do so many interesting things, and it's definitely just like specifically when you're pushing, such a great like card. It's very hard to skip. So I buy another Phoenix and assist that with an Arc Light and the Steel Balls to try to get the open tower here. Now he actually does a similar play, but actually pulls the Sledgehammer back in front of tower as a more defensive posture. So he ends up actually just leaving this wide open here. Now I know he's very likely to take the redeploy and redeploy Phoenix to flank, so I end up doing 2 late missiles here. Now something to note, it's a small little detail here, but the missiles, the zone that the missile is in does not include the flank. The reason for that is more just a habit, but let's just say I had a crawler on the flank here. Let me just pause this real quick. If I had a crawler on the flank here and he does a crawler Phoenix flank, the crawler would actually kill his crawler flank, and then if the Phoenix were to spawn in, the crawlers would be dead, and then once a Phoenix enters the zone, the missile would cover it. So it's like one way to, or it's an efficient way to do with any air flanks in general, right? So again, I'm not really fixing the arc light problem that I created for myself round 1, so this side is a little bit disastrous here, but, you know, at least I get his tower on the right side, I guess. Yeah, I think, honestly, I should just make it a habit into, like, no chaff packs, or if I expect crawlers round 1, I should position my arc lights a little bit further back. Just so I don't have to waste, like, Phoenix deploys fixing the problem I created, right? So pretty disastrous round here. Taking a decent amount of damage, but it is the Farseer turn, so now the turn should be better for me since I have extra supply. Now haste module feels like a pretty snap pick here. Everything else doesn't look that interesting. Barrier, of course, is very good for like fortresses, let's say, if you're going for the fortress spam, but usually I like to prioritize tempo above all else, and I try to just close out the game as fast as possible without getting into giants if I don't have to. Now, haste module is definitely very interesting on a steel ball, since mainly just the movement speed. The attack doesn't really make that much of a difference, but if you can get in faster and get an early debuff, of course, the rest of your army can take advantage of that. So we're actually redeploying the steel balls back and committing to the main push. Generally, how I like to approach a lot of these ASIM games, I like to still, at the end of the day, have as much resources on one side as possible so I can just overwhelm a side. And then when it comes to the weak side, I like to pressure it and try to bait resources out of my opponent so that he overcommits and has more dead supply on one side so that I'm favored on my stronger side. Now I go for the Arc Light Crawler deep flank, which I usually don't commit to because this flank can be easily countered by like a single Rhino. But since I do have access to the redeploy, I'm allowed to do these things because I can always get my resources back and it's not any dead supply here. So again, I have just most of my resources on one side, so I should be able to overwhelm the left side here. Pick up a defense enhancement, that way if my arc lights were to get missiled, they won't instantly die. They would have 76 hit points left. So the haste module steel balls end up getting an early debuff, and that should allow enough time for my Phoenixes, my Farseer, and the Arc Light to clean everything up here. So we are regaining some tempo, but of course that's due to the fact that we have the Farseer supply coming in round 4. Now more unit drops, a lot of interesting things to pick up here. I think it's honestly just pretty straightforward. Sabretooth. Sabretooth beats the tarantulas, and wasps can be a problem since I don't have that much anti-air. I still have Farseer, so he's very unlikely that he's going to commit to the wasp, and Stormcrawlers don't really do much against a push. So for me, it was like straightforward Sabretooth. And usually off unit drops, I do like to commit text to them just to make sure that I'm ahead. So in case, let's say he takes a Sabertooth himself, I want to make sure my Sabertooth to get some experience off of his. Now, surprisingly, he took the spiders. The spiders definitely is an interesting pickup into a steel ball push because, well, spiders aren't that great in the steel balls, but spiders are very good with, once they get levels and text, like HE, spider clears chaff like insanely well, even better than arc lights, and mines can do a very good job at slowing down that push, and it's very good into arc light steel ball. But like tempo wise, I think this is a negative tempo play, especially into the Sabertooth drop and the steel ball drop. Now I am just committing to the same side since he's probably going to expect me to switch sides again, so maybe just more a bit of a mind game over here, and I put a Sabertooth in front of this arc light, which conveniently gets placed right in front of a tarantula here, which it makes sense that he places a tarantula here, so I ended up getting a little bit lucky with that. I did have 50 extra supply. I probably should have put temp speed, but I probably ran out of time here. And we instantly snipe the arc light with the Sabertooth. We blow a missile on the flank. So now the steel ball looks like it might eventually just get in here. And now my flank that he's supposed to cover ends up pulling through anyways because of the Sabertooth addition here. So now he has just a lot of problems to solve. I think it was just more so he just picked the wrong unit drop and he gets punished for it. Like Sabertooths in theory, or sorry, spiders in theory long term are very good, but you do take a big hit for taking the drop here. Now they just keep handing out these haste modules and you can't really say no to them, right? Speed is good, extra stat boost is good, probably on a Phoenix. So I will be picking that up here. Now, Mass Produced Fortress is an insane card, and it's very, like, it's one of those cards where you can't really skip it. But since I'm just looking to tempo him out of the game and close out fast, I don't want to, like, do any setup turn. I just want to do as much HP damage as fast as possible and just try to close out the game right here. Now, I put the haste module on a Phoenix and I end up jump driving both my Phoenixes behind the steel balls, and I set up just a similar push to the other side here. Since if I pull this Phoenix and Mustang, this steel ball should honestly just get in for free. And of course he uses the oil on the turn that I redeploy out, which is very convenient for me. So it looks like these steel balls should just get in again here, right? Like this redeploy card is just very nasty, right? And you can just do so many redeploy things. Like he places his chaff in front of the Saber, but next turn I can just like redeploy it right in front of the tarantula, and this flank just goes through again. So just like a very tricky card to deal with. Now, of course, this is what I was kind of expecting. He does have to spend like 2 deploys doing this, or I guess a redeploy. But the thinking is you just hope that I get tower fast enough for the flanks to not matter that much here. I just like to put, again, as much resources on the front as possible and try to overwhelm. So we end up just crushing right side, but of course I'm going to get a pretty bad tower timing. I guess it's not that bad because we trade towers, so not that big a deal. But I can't really fully utilize my debuff. But I think that's fine. Like, he had to spend 2 resources just to do this play. And him wasting deployments on flank instead of defending his towers seems advantageous for me. Alright, we got him down to 2 HP. Where again, we really just need 1 more round to close out here. Redeploy, or deployment module is just nice to have as well. You can move 2 units every round instead of 1 unit. That's got to be value, right? Now, since I'm not oiled on the right side, of course, it's very likely that I'm just going to commit harder to the right side since I could actually get the tower. We redeploy the Sabertooth to insta-lock the Saber, which should take care of that pretty fast. And if all goes well here, I might even get a debuff from that reposition. Now I move my steel balls to a different location just to have a different area of attack. Jump drive the Phoenixes behind them, and Mold Beacon the Crawler Pack Phoenix Pack Ball Pack to the tower here. We're just looking for new angles to approach. Now he is on death's door, so it's very likely he's just gonna go for missile spam. So maybe I should have played around that more by like AM devices or shielding, but I don't think I do. Placing a Farseer on the flank. Can't really go wrong with like just 2 late Farseers, and it handles any threats that can be thrown at me on the flank. Like this missile is just super deadly here. And it's very obvious that he's going to do a bunch of missile spam because it's late in the game and he really just doesn't want to die here. So, of course, if I played around this turn probably goes a lot better here. Just adding more crawlers to the flank as well, since he's probably going to missile the flanks as well. Like, flanks is one of the more important things to deal with fast. So I usually prioritize missiling that there, right? So fortunately, my steel balls get slowed down, and that causes some of my Phoenixes to die, or one Phoenix to die early, but he still doesn't really have the cleanest answer to the steel balls here, right? The flank does get through though with the reposition, and that looks like that should be game here. $2,000 hit points overkill looks pretty nice. So I would say this game was what made it interesting, or what was like the advantage that I had was just utilizing the redeploy. I would say it's one of the better, or maybe some of the one of the best cards to get when you're playing aggro, since you can do a lot of threats and it's very hard for the defender to cover all angles, and they're always going to have to overcommit to like possible threats that you could do. And it just benefits the ASIM player, since you can still have all your resources on one side, you can still threaten the weak side, but then bring all your resources back. Or if you expect like a tower oil to come through to slow down a push, then you can just switch sides with all your Phoenixes. And I think jump drive with redeployment is also very threatening, because I could just like move 2 Phoenixes with the steel balls, and imagine like with the redeployment, I can just move so many of my units all at once to do some like unpredictable plays here. But honestly, not too complicated of a push. It really just the basis arc lights and just utilizing unit drops. I would say that's one of the more important things for an aggro player to do, is if you have like unit drops are very or I think more impactful in aggro and defensive games, because I think tempo matters a lot more. And if you have to sell the unit drops to then unlock your own unit, not only are you missing out on all the deploys that they're giving you, but you also have to unlock new units and waste deploys there. It's such a negative tempo loss that you do when you do these things. So I think if you are creative and try to utilize the unit drops to the best of your abilities, even though it might not seem ideal from like a unit comp standpoint, but if you still get to utilize all the deploys and get some experience and skill off that, I think it's you'll always have the upper hand here. So just utilizing unit drops with the Arclight as the base, and then of course Sabertooth as the unit drops, and I guess Phoenixes is like just a core tool I use, at least jump drive Phoenixes. But that wraps up today's replay review. Thanks for watching.